My goal really today is to just share some stories and update you on what I'm hearing out in the market and in the field from both publishers and from marketers. And thank you all for showing up. The other goal here is for you guys to network and to share your experience with technology, with data, with vendors that you're using. And that's really apropos to my opening today. In speaking with publishers and marketers, the rules and the game that we're all playing in has evolved, and I would also say has changed a lot in the last few years. The definition of a traditional publisher is very different than it was today, and I think that some of you sitting in the room today may or may not have been called a publisher 5 or 6 years ago, and today there are publishers that work with each other, and there are publishers that do certain aspects that other publishers don't do, and there's a lot of vendors and technology providers out there today that are looking for your support. So I'd like to really cover that today in my State of the Union or market presentation. So jumping right in, when I meet with marketers, and I've met with a lot of marketers in the last 6 months, marketers are really under some challenges as well. It's not just the publishers today. And if you look at the marketers, what they're telling us is every year they want tighter and tighter filters on their lead generation campaigns, for example. They're driving us to only deliver certain job titles or certain company sizes. And at the same time, they want to do it at a lower price. And why is it that they're doing this? They're doing this because they're getting pressure from their boss. Marketers are under more scrutiny than they've ever been. And the CEOs of their companies are now looking at the analytics and dashboards and demanding more of the CMO. So it's not all glory for them either. Marketers' databases that they're acquiring they're buying large amounts of names and leads, and what they're finding, by the way, is that only about 10% of the leads that they buy are active. They go into their marketing funnel and they die by the time they get in there. So that's a challenge for them as well. And marketers are also saying, hey, I have enough leads. What I really need to know is who to call. And I think that's what's really resonating, and what I'm hearing the most from marketers today is that they just want to know who to call at this point, or who to tell their salespeople to call. So that's a big change from a few years ago. On the publisher side, we're now seeing competition from our marketers, right? Marketers, if you look at the marketers today, they're sitting on databases sometimes that are larger than publishers. I've talked to marketers or enterprise IT companies that literally have 5 million names in their database. Some have 10 million to 20 million names in their database. Medium-sized companies have 1 million to 2 million names in their database. That's actually bigger than most of the publishers that we work with, which is quite astonishing. So they really do have a lot of names. They need to know which are the ones that are in market for their products or which ones to call on. The other challenge is that marketing automation has actually turned marketers into publishers. They have the names, they have the database, and now they're developing content. They're hiring editors. They're developing their own white papers and many white papers and webinars, and they're becoming publishers. So that's adding more noise, if you will, to the mix. And what that's really doing is it's making them send out more emails. They're sending out, there's a lot more noise in the market. Your subscribers are getting probably significantly more emails than they were getting just a year ago as marketing automation becomes more proliferated and adopted by more marketers. So there's a lot of noise out there. And last but not least, advertisers are starting to ask upon marketers account-based scoring. They want to know, again, who to call, and that's how it's unfolding. So this is not about my future. This is not about Madison Logic's future. I'll tell you, I met with the CEO of a pretty large, one of the 5 largest IT publishing companies just last week. And he was telling me, based on what's going on in the market and the market conditions, he's actually changing his entire business model. And he's going back to the way he was 5 years ago, which is he's putting the audience first, marketer second. And what he explained to me was that over the last 4 or 5 years, he's let the advertiser dictate what he does with his database. And so what that means is he would get a very difficult campaign to fulfill, and he would basically pound his list into submission. And he's gone from a large list that was pretty active to a very small list because he's gotten a lot of opt-outs over the last 4 or 5 years. And so he's changed his mission, his strategy, and he's actually now turning away he's told me $500,000 a month in demand gen business. And he's focusing right now just on re-engaging with the audience and figuring out what does his audience want. If you think about it, what he's really saying is he's trying to help business buyers make informed decisions. That's his number one goal. If he can do that, his audience will grow again. If he does that, his list will become healthy again, and then he'll be able to work with the marketers to deliver on campaigns that are good campaigns. He'll be able to sell email and display again the way he used to. And that's really what he's doing. That's quite remarkable to hear about, and I'm actually glad to hear that that's the way the big publishers are thinking today. So it's a bit of a change from where we've been. You know, the marketers are also starting to see a sea change. Marketers were asking for really tight filters, more. They thought that they could filter and get call-ready leads by asking custom questions and asking for only specific job titles. And I think marketers are starting to realize that that's not how the game is played. Marketers are starting to realize that they don't sell to individuals, they sell to accounts. And in order to do real account-based scoring, you need to have a lot of signals and nodes out there, which means you need to build your database, you need to fill the funnel. And that's really where we see the future of this, and where I think we can all come together and work together, is the marketers are asking for it, we need a product for it. And the appetite for new leads, even though a marketer may have 5 million names in their database, they're not saying we don't need any more names. What they're just saying is that they have a lot of names, they don't know which ones to call. But if you think about it, there's about a 25% turnover every year in the IT market. So they'll always have an appetite for new names. They always need to fill the funnel with who those new people are that are coming into the market, but also trying to understand who all the people are that are in the market. And I'll give you another good, interesting story. We were at a large vendor in Boston. I'll tell you, I can't tell you the name, but one of the top 5 for sure largest IT vendors in the country, and a very large database, about 5 million users. And I said to them, right now you're buying very filtered campaigns. You're buying only certain job titles and certain company sizes. And I said to them, if one of your prospects, very large company, all of a sudden I could tell you that there's 3 interns at that company, literally interns, that all of a sudden started downloading and reading a lot of articles on a very particular topic that you sell. I said, would you be interested in that? Would you want to know about that? And the VP of marketing said, absolutely, we want to know about that. I said, well, why would you want to know about that? That's not a lead that you're buying. They said, well, because if the interns are downloading a lot of white papers or reading a lot of articles, someone must have told them to do that, which means that that account is in market for our product. And I said, exactly. So if you buy into that philosophy, then drop your filters. You don't need filters anymore. Job title filtering is really just an old way of thinking from when you used to buy lists. So really what you want to do is fill your funnel with as many people as possible at that company, and let the data do the filtering, let the content do the filtering. So if I could fill your funnel with 20 people at one company that all work at that company, I don't care if they're an intern or if they're a VP or a director level, we put them all into the funnel, and then you use data, and what we do, we call it content consumption monitoring, but you listen to those buyers and you wait for them to show up on your radar. Meaning you monitor them, you listen for when they're reading an article on a particular topic that you're selling, and when you can put enough of those nodes together, you can start to do account scoring. You can start to realize that there's something going on at that account, and you could see that that account's in market. So we call that content consumption monitoring. The way it works is we aggregate as much intent data as possible, and the definition of intent data is really driven by topics. We put together a taxonomy of 1,200 B2B topics, very granular B2B topics, and we look for those topics across all of the impressions that we see, whether it's an article read, a white paper, a case study, a webinar, a search. And then when we see a user navigate or read an article, we match up that user's experience with the topic that's on that page, and then we know that user has just read an article on this particular topic. So it's a matter of keeping track of the time and date that it happened, the topic that they're interested in, and the type of interaction. So a webinar versus an article read or a search, or in the future, social activity. So implementing the future, you know, we can't do this ourselves, and I think that's the real main point here, is that nobody can do this themselves. Nobody has enough data to aggregate enough data together for it to be meaningful. And it's all about as much data as possible. When I speak to marketers, they're starting to realize that if 90% of their database is inactive, 90% of the users that they're buying, the leads that they're buying, die the minute it hits the funnel, it means that they don't have enough data on their users. And even the largest marketer in the world, an IBM or a Microsoft, they don't have that much traffic on their website. You guys do. The publishers have a lot of traffic on your website, and in aggregate, you're going to know more about the largest marketer's database than they are. But in order to do this, we need to work together. And we're not talking about sharing PII. We're not talking about sharing your list, your database. We're talking about intent data, just sharing intent data. Now, we all have an appetite for intent data. Publishers can use it themselves for their email marketing. Publishers do a lot of marketing. You guys do, in general, do a lot of marketing. And marketers can use it as well. But we need to share data. And the last point about this is that this data is perishable. You're not sharing data that has any value in 9 to 12 months. If somebody is in market for storage, cloud services today, in 9 months ago, all I can pretty much tell you about that user is they're not in market for that product in 9 months. So by sharing this perishable data, we all win, and you're not giving away anything that's of value in a year from now. Although we only launched this on August 1st, between our network and our data contribution partners, and some of you guys in this room are our contribution partners already, we already are seeing about 50 million interactions a month. Some of those interactions are coming from granular white paper downloads and webinars, but a lot of it's coming from article reads and search and other forms as well. So it's a pretty large amount. For the B2B world, 50 million interactions is pretty large. We're also right now monitoring 25 million B2B users worldwide. So there's 25 million B2B users and about 50 million interactions on a monthly basis. The use cases of this, and you know, again, part of the reason that we've gathered you here today is to talk amongst yourselves, because there are a lot of different use cases. And I think Andy's going to speak a little bit later today about how he's using the data, and he has two different use cases. You know, publishers can use this for display advertising. The idea being, if you have an audience that you're trying to serve display ads to, and you could recognize that there's more users in your universe, you can serve it to a larger audience segment, which means more money, more dollars, and a bigger budget for marketers. You could use it for lead scoring, which I truly believe is where the industry is going, not necessarily on a lead level, but maybe on an account level. Email targeting. Most of you have seen the email segment builder that we have, and Aaron's going to demo this right after me to show you how marketers and publishers can use the email segment builder to build larger audiences that are more targeted and really serving what the end user wants, serving them content that they're interested in reading, so they'll open and click. And so with that, I'm going to pass this to Erin, and she's going to give a quick demo of the email segment builder.